Hi, Stevie Ray here. Some years ago, a school teacher called me and asked if I would volunteer to give a presentation to a group of school children. Now, the subject of today's talk is not about humor, but the subject of the talk to the kids back then was about laughter. See, not only am I a pretty funny guy, my wife and stepdaughter's opinions notwithstanding, I've also studied quite a bit about the subject of laughter and how humor affects the brain, laughter affects relationships and team building and that kind of thing. And the teacher thought it would be interesting for the kids to learn. Also, she thought it would be socially educational for the kids to learn what are considered inappropriate subjects for humor. I told her I could explain humor, but as far as kids laughing at what kids think is funny, I'm no miracle worker. Now, the point of today's talk is not about what I talked about, but who I talked to. The teacher in question taught 4th grade. Knowing that the group was going to be around age 9 was important. Now, I could probably omit that one theory of laughter is that it's a homeostatic reaction in the brain to reduce psychological tension. That's not going to fly. But the first rule of any good public speaker is know your audience. So I spent a week preparing a presentation for about 30 9-year-old kids. About a week before the presentation, the teacher called and said, "Hey, another teacher heard about this and she wants to know if she can add her class into the mix. We'll move you from my classroom into the media room." And I thought, no big deal, just a few more kids. A few days later, she called and said, another teacher had heard about it and wanted to add her class. We would move the whole group to the auditorium. Do you mind presenting to a much larger group? I said, it doesn't matter. I mean, little did she know that if you're an entertainer and a presenter and public speaker like myself, bigger the audience, the better. And I thought, hey, how much different can 3 classes of kids be than just 1 or 2? Is it obvious I've never taught school? So the day finally arrived. I got to the school, was escorted to the auditorium, and waited for the kids to file in. And first, 30 4th grade giggling kids walked in. And then a few minutes later, 30 2nd graders walked in. And then a few minutes later, 30 12th graders walked in. The teacher had failed to tell me that the other teachers wanting to join didn't teach 4th grade. So here I was having to explain humor to a group of 7-year-olds, 9-year-olds, and 17-year-olds. I had to figure out a way to access the mindset of one without talking over the head of another, or making sure I explain it well enough for a younger audience without patronizing or boring the older kids, which is not easy considering the different mindsets they have. I mean, the mindset of a 2nd grader is how to stay in motion for pretty much most of the day. Whereas the mindset of a 4th grader was try to be funnier than the guy talking, which usually involved the most creative ways to make noises using your own body. And the mindset of an average 12th grader is what's on the mind of the other 12th graders, especially if a romantic interest has been sparked. So I was scrambling the whole time. I had to completely dump my outline. And what I remember afterwards is I couldn't remember really what I talked about. But I remember being more focused during that presentation than any presentation before or since. I had to keep in mind what they wanted to hear. I had to think of the mental acuity they had, the maturity level, the level of interest, what was going on in their lives. And I had to completely think on my feet. Now, most people would be surprised who know me to hear that I was scared of that, because I am a professional who's practiced in the art of improvisation. But improvisational artists will tell you that creativity is actually born of structure. You can't be creative unless you have a good outline. And I had to completely scrap my outline the whole day. But the cool thing is that I completely focused on my audience. What did they need or want to hear at that moment? And it went wonderfully. The kids cheered and laughed. They were all engaged the entire time. At the end, a bunch of them even said I was cool. I've been waiting for years to be called cool while in a school building. It was worth the wait. So the next time you're preparing a presentation, think less about your outline and more about your audience. What do they need or really want to hear at that point? It might help for you to start by asking, what would I do if the audience I didn't expect walked in the room? Thanks for watching. Gotta get back to work.